meeting to order. Our October 3rd Town Council meeting. I'm going to be filling in for Mayor Maury, who is currently overseas. And again, I'm Mayor Pro Tem Matt Neal. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Follow with a brief moment of silence. Okay, thank you, Council, for being here tonight. First task is to approve the agenda. I would like to request an amendment to the agenda under new business. We'll add as item 7, a consideration of contract award for the path on NC 12. Do I have a motion to amend?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion. The agenda is adopted as amended. Next item is our consent agenda. I hope you all have a chance to briefly review it. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I voted aye for both of those for the record. I just didn't say it. Next item is a presentation from our new auditor, Reed Parker. Look forward to hearing your financial report.
Good evening. I hope everyone's doing well. Again, my name is Reed Parker. I'm a CPA with Clark, Riggs & Ingram CPA firm based out of New Bern, North Carolina. This is our first year doing the engagement for the town of Southern Shores, so I'm pleased to be here tonight to kind of present the audit report and the financial statements. I'll start off by saying this is a 70-page document, so feel free to jump in at any point in time during my presentation if you've got questions. Don't, if you want to wait to the end, that's fine, but if you want to jump in right as I'm speaking, please feel free. What I like to do when I first kind of talk about what we're engaged to do, the main thing we're engaged to do is provide an opinion on the financial statements. And this year, because the town triggered what's called a single audit, a state single audit, we're actually offering 2 opinions. So the first opinion is based on, really on page 1, which is the opinion over the overall financial statements. And it reads, in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. In layman's term, that means when we looked at the balances, the transactions, the disclosures, everything, we did not have any issues. So again, we issued this opinion of that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. That's the highest level of opinion that we can offer. Back towards the back on page 57 is another audit opinion over state major programs. I'll get into a little bit more towards the end of my presentation about the single audit aspect, but we offered an opinion that, in our opinion, Southern Shores complied with all direct and material compliance requirements related to their water resources development grant. And that was the grant related to the beach nourishment project. And I'll speak about that a little bit later on in my presentation. But again, so those are the 2 opinions that we offered. That's really the main function we're engaged to do, is provide an opinion on the financial statements and on state major programs. So again, glad to present that in those 2 areas where y'all received the highest opinion available. Because it was a single audit, we are required to test internal controls over the town. I'm glad to present that we had no internal control findings for the internal controls we tested. Again, and there were no prior for your findings as well. So again, nothing really to report there other than a clean opinion related to the internal controls. Next, I just wanted to kind of hit some of the financial highlights. Again, this is a 70-page document, but the management discussion and analysis portion, pages 4 through 10, really provide a wealth of information and kind of condense that information down. So a lot of that information that I'm going to discuss is within those pages, really on page 4. The government's total net position increased by $8,176,878 this year. The main drivers were that as we capitalized $9.93 million with the beach nourishment project and there was about $1.1 million in debt reduction this year. So those were the main drivers of that pretty significant increase in governmental net position. The government net position ended the year end at $27,461,681. Again, very strong, financial position for the town. There are three major funds within the government activities. They were the general fund, the capital project fund, and your ARPA fund. Again, the main one I'm going to focus in is on your general fund. General fund increased this year by $1.8 million approximately. The main drivers related to that were occupancy and sales tax and land transfer tax. Again, I think those three items by themselves exceeded the budget by about $950,000. So those were the main drivers on that increase in the fund balance for the general fund. The general fund balance for year end ended at $13,398,414. So again, very strong financial position in the general fund. The town received your second ARPA allocation, $471,000 approximately. These were used to offset police salaries and benefits. And then one of the key factors that the state looks at is unassigned fund balance in the general fund. Your unassigned fund balance at year-end was $7,830,328. This represents about 92% of fund total expenditures. You have an extra document here. This is called the performance indicator that's put together by the state. We're required to present it if there are red flag issues. The town does not have any red flag issues, but I like to include it because on page 2 is one of the key metrics that the state looks at, and that's that unassigned fund balance. And again, the town's at 94%. The threshold that the state established was 34%, and they looked at similar units to the town, and those similar units are at 63%. So you're, again, well above those ratios. And what that's saying is, again, that unassigned fund balance, if there's an extraordinary event that happens, the town's in good shape to be able to absorb that unexpected event. And again, living on the Outer Banks, you're one tropical season away from an extraordinary event, really. So again, the town's in real good shape with that unassigned fund balance. As I mentioned earlier, the town was subject to a single audit this year, a state single audit. And what that kind of means is if the town expends more than $500,000 of state awards, that program by itself has to receive a separate audit and look at 12 different compliance requirements. So again, we tested that. The Beach Nourishment Project was a water resource development grant through the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. We reviewed that program. We tested those compliance requirements and had no issue with how the town dealt with those state awards. It does require additional scrutiny at our level, at the state level, again, because those are deemed very risky because, again, if something was wrong, there is the option that the town would have to pay that money back. But again, we found no issues whatsoever with that program. I know I kind of flew through that, so if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. The audit report has been submitted. It has not received final LGC approval yet. Again, the only thing we usually see is maybe some formatting issues or anything like that. We certainly don't expect any changes in terms of numbers or anything of that sort. And I would expect to get approval really within the next week, I would hope. So like I said, I know I flew through that, but if there's any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
So there are no majors,
No, excuse me?
no minors?
No, nothing at all. Again, really, again, first year audits are very difficult. As a new auditing firm coming in, it went as well as could be expected. Town is super organized. The staff was great to work with. Again, they're difficult in the best of circumstances, and this was about the best of circumstances. So, we really appreciate that.
And if we have any questions after we have a chance to go through this, if you have any questions, I'm assuming you're available.
Absolutely. And Bonnie has my information, along with Madonna Stafford, who is also out here working with us we were out here a couple of days, a couple of different times. So yes, they have our contact information. And absolutely, if y'all have questions, please do not hesitate at all to give us a call. We certainly would welcome that.
We got a second booklet.
I'm sorry, yes, since the town wrote their financial statements, we present what's called required communications. It's really accounting policies and procedures. If there were findings, if there were audit adjustments, they would be included in that. But really, so all you're having there is some accounting policies, accounting procedures, the management representation letter. There were no findings, no audit adjustments required this year. If so, they would have been included in that. I'm sorry for not mentioning that. Yes.
Appreciate you walking us through. This is the first chance we had a chance to look at this audit. It looks pretty similar to previous years. We keep contributing to unassigned fund balance, and staff and bonding manager, you guys have done a fantastic job.
Right, and as y'all know, the town has a minimum fund balance of $3 million. You well exceeded that. You're $4.8 million over that minimum fund balance. So that's excellent.
Hopefully you don't have to use it.
Yeah. That's
Good rainy day
emergency.
That's an emergency.
It's a good rainy day fund.
Yes, absolutely.
Does anybody have any more questions
No.
for Mr. Parker?
Is there any chance we can get this earlier next year?
Yeah, that's,
So that so we can review it, maybe?
Absolutely,
Ask
absolutely.
more smart questions instead.
Absolutely, yes. I mean,
Okay.
I will certainly note that, and we can get, especially a digital copy to you
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
That
So-
certainly should be able to be done. Yes, sir.
Just so we can, we're confident. I mean, I'm confident that
Absolutely.
No majors, no minors. I'm
it's hard to flip
very
through in a
confident
hurry.
it would just help.
Yeah, and as again, I know I'm saying page 1, page 56. I understand that y'all probably hadn't had a chance to look over it well. So yes, absolutely, we can get you a digital copy early next year. And again, don't hesitate to call us if you've got questions.
That'd be super.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll have a great rest of your evening. I really appreciate it. Again, I want to just say thank you to the staff. They did a tremendous job having things organized for us when we got out here. It was a great process.
You're the best.
Thank you.
Bonnie does a great job.
Congratulations, Bonnie.
You do a great job keeping us advised in between.
Well, next, we're moving on to our staff reports. And Wes, you're up first. Our Deputy Town Manager, Planning Director. Try not to be too familiar.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. No problem. Good evening, members of council. September report for permits. We issued 47 total permits. 11 of those were zoning permits. 16 of those were building permits. 11 were zoning permits and 1 lot disturbance stormwater management permit. Total amount of fees we collected in September was $19,576.56. With respect to code enforcement, there were 6 warning citations mailed for solid waste ordinance violations. With respect to the land use plan update, the consultant is still working on incorporating your comments into the draft plan. And once that's complete, the draft plan will be sent to the Division of Coastal Management for their review, their required review. Following that review, the draft plan will come back to you for adoption through a public hearing, or it will be sent back to the planning board, depending on revisions suggested or required by DCM. With respect to the planning board, their next meeting will be held here in the Pitt Center, October 16th, 5 o'clock. The purpose of the meeting will be to continue consideration of SUP 2301, the mixed-use group development application submitted by GenGod LLC for 6195 North Croatan Highway. And also, if time permits, they may also consider a lot width ZTA. Also wanted to report, it's not included in my written report that you received, but we did submit the Tourism Board Impact Grant for the path on the west side of 12 between East Dogwood and Hickory. We submitted that on Thursday. And we got the confirmation that it was received on Friday. So we'll keep our ears open on that one.
Did the consultant give any amendments to the land use plan, the timeline for it?
For the review,
Yeah. Well, not before. Well, 2-part. Can we get a copy of it simultaneously as you submit it to CAMA? Just to see what's going to CAMA? And
Yes,
then did they
yes,
tell
sir.
you how long it would take to implement those revisions?
no, I think they checked. Well, initially they were saying, or we were saying that it could take months.
Yeah.
But in some previous conversations we've had with them, Asking about timing for other jurisdictions that they're working in, they said it's been a lot quicker, usually
months or
a matter of weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Which
And that's
is
for camera review.
This is the DCM review, yes, sir. But yes, we can, once those revisions have been incorporated, the ones you all asked for, and they have that draft sent to DCM, I'll make sure that you all get a copy of it as well.
Anybody have any other questions for the deputy town manager?
Ju-
planning
ju-
director?
Just one on the warning citations. Is
Yes,
that trend going down as summer's ended, or?
That's the lowest number we've had, I think, since y'all adopted the changes to the ordinance.
Okay,
That's the lowest number. That's the lowest number we've had for a month.
thank you.
The ordinance amendments, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Thank you, Wes.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
Chief Cole.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. I don't have a report for the stats for last month, but I'll give you 2 reports next month because Jennifer, our administrative assistant, she is in Texas right now. But I do have some things I'd like to highlight. Friday, September 22nd, during the height of the tropical storm, we had a family that was visiting here on vacation when the 12-year-old daughter got into a fight with her mother and she ran off. So our officers, along with the fire department, I believe a duck officer, they spent probably, I don't know exactly how long, but quite an in-depth search trying to find her. We hit the beach, and of course it was pretty nasty weather. We were very fortunate and blessed that a passing motorist happened to see her off on the side of another side street and picked her up, and we got her back to her mother. So everything was fine, and they continued and finished their vacation. Today, we're at Kitty Hawk Elementary School. Several of the officers, including 2 Kitty Hawk officers, we participated in, I believe it was their first one of the school season, lockdown drill, and all went well. And it was advantageous for the fact that this is the first year that they've got preschool at the school. So it was an educational process for the new teachers and for the preschool as well. And it was also good for the new teachers and staff, as well as the Kitty Hawk officer. There was one there that's fairly new, so he's familiarized himself. Knock on wood, we have an interview tomorrow for a potential officer. As you know, we're still down 3. This gentleman actually used to live with his parents here, Hillcrest? On Hillcrest. He's currently an officer in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So we're hoping that we'll have a good interview process, and we'll keep you up to date on that as well. October 12th is going to be Trunk or Treat at the COA in Manio. We'll have 2 officers and their vehicles participating in that. October 13th is the Bike and Walk to School. Our officers will be participating in that, and as well as we always do every year. And October 20th, Kitty Hawk Elementary School will be their fall festival, and we'll have just about all of our officers participating in that. And just one other thing, I can't give you too much information on it because it's still a pending investigation, and one of the individuals is 16 years old, but we had received some information and some video from an alert resident that wasn't at their house on Sea Oats at the time, but was at their other house. Anyway, we followed up on that, and what we've ended up was they were poachers, and I don't know if you guys remember, but a few years back we had a couple of instances where we found a dead deer with a bow and arrow in it. These guys were using compound bows. We watched the video, and then we surveilled the place, and we actually went back 2 days later and found one of the deer and matched it up to the bows and that. And the individual was 16 years old. In North Carolina, it's pretty hard to criminally deal with him. So what we've done is we have turned it over to North Carolina Wildlife to continue the investigation, and hopefully they'll be able to prosecute him as a juvenile. Any questions? Thank you.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our fire chief is not present. We got a report emailed to us prior. I asked you all to take a quick look at it. They're always pretty thorough. And we'll move on to town manager, Mr. Ogburn.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. First, I wanted to share that Open Fiber, we've been talking about the fiber company, the utility that's going to be coming into town. They're finishing up laying the fiber cable in Kitty Hawk. I think they're just about finished there. They changed their name, I think I shared with you, to Ripple Fiber. They could be starting work here in Southern Shores as soon as Monday. Wes and I and David Bradley, Public Works Director, all three of us or one of us will be meeting weekly with Ripple, so we can make sure we're staying on track. We know where they're headed. We know the direction they're going, and we can update our website weekly with where they are and what the plan is moving forward. They're required to hang these. They're supposed to give folks notification that they're coming. We've got an encroachment agreement that we've signed, and it's in place with them that talks about, how many feet they can work on at any given time, how many crews can work at any given time, the hours of operation. It lays out all that information to try and keep them in check. And we also have on our website, we'll have for problems and issues, we'll have a phone number that residents can contact. We'll have, there's a form that can be filled out online if there's a construction issue. I asked them how many problems they had in Kitty Hawk, and they said they had 7 complaints. So we'll hopefully don't match that. But
What
that
was the nature of the complaint?
working the right of way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my front yard, but it's also the right of way.
Yeah.
That ongoing issue. So that'll start potentially Monday.
But they didn't break anything in Kitty Hawk.
No, and they repaired things pretty quickly.
Good.
From what I understand. We've also got a bond in place, a performance bond, in case something does go awry. We're holding $25,000 for 5 miles at a time as they move to address anything if we have to.
Is that going on the same side of the street as the other utilities are?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, there's a cabinet right out here by
Yeah.
Crumble. Everything's going to come off of that. And they'll work in Martins Point at the same time they're working in Southern Shores. And then I think they move on to Kidoba Hills.
They're using real big reels. When those things are in the street, they're hard to get by.
Yeah.
I mean, the reels are huge that they're using.
Yeah. From what I saw over in Kitty Hawk Estates, they didn't get into the street with them.
Yeah.
Right away.
We're moving on with the purchase of 13 Skyline. Obviously, we have that, got that in ownership now. We're going to be meeting next week with the Gudises and Outer Banks Community Foundation with the Historic Flat Top Preservation and, trying to put a plan together. There's an endowment that comes from the Community Foundation that will be working to put towards some of the maintenance. The police chief is very graciously working with Helping Hands, trying to come up with, if we are going to be able to maybe temporary house some police officers in there, there's some things that are going to have to occur to change it from office back to residential. So all that's ongoing. The agreement we have with the North Carolina League of Municipalities, where they're pursuing grants for us, they're starting on a water resources development grant for some of the stormwater projects, and also identified 2 potential grants maybe that could assist with the Juniper culvert replacement. One's reconnecting communities and neighborhoods, and the other is a transportation infrastructure, finance, and innovation rural project initiative. So they've got a database where they're searching for grants for us to help with some of these projects. Be meeting hopefully soon with Mr. Schmitz and Better Beaches and lay out a game plan. We can start planting in November, which is next month, believe it or not. So we'll be getting a plan together to finish up the beach grass, and and we've still got some more sand fence that we can place. That's all I have.
Any questions?
When I was reading maybe this will come up in the Kinley Horn contract, I was reading where they're doing the work because there won't be any grants.
Well,
Will those what you're going for interfere with that at all?
No, sir.
No, okay.
Yeah.
All right, because it seemed like it was good to not have to work with that. I mean,
yeah, they're,
reading the
they're
contract.
making the assumption that they don't have to, they're moving forward as if there's no strings attached to the
Right.
money.
Yeah.
And any of these grants that we would apply for, that would be the
There
case.
might be change.
Really, what they're saying is if there are, it's our problem. They're not going to do it,
Yeah, right, but if you get the grants, there could be some strings.
potentially.
But we'll
Yes, sir.
have to worry about that when we get there. Got it, okay. All right.
Thanks.
Any other question? Thank you. Town Attorney, Mr. Hornthal, do you have?
No
anything to
report, guys. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Next agenda item is our general public comment. As a reminder, as you come up to the podium, when you're called, somebody got the sign-up sheet?
Sign up sheet back there.
When you come up to the podium as called, please state your name and where you live.
There's no
And
sign up.
no sign-ups, never mind. We don't have any.
I think there's some in the audience.
Does anybody in the audience wish to speak? Come on up, state your name, where you live, and in 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Malcolm Fearing. I'm a 68-year resident of Dare County who resides on Roanoke Island. I have nothing to sell. I have nothing to profit from the advocacy that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. Not for myself, my family, my cousins, anybody. But it's an issue that's you've been reading about for some time now about housing. This issue is too big of an issue for us to fail as a community. What I am advocating is cooperation. And I think y'all, the chairman of the Dare County Board of Commissioners is reaching out now. Everybody wants housing, but nobody wants it next to them. And that seems to be the reality. So solutions is what I want to bring forward. Again, nothing to profit myself, nothing to profit my family. The county owns a piece of land over where Buffalo City used to be. Now, there's some in the room that might know where Buffalo City is, but it's the only city that's ever been in Dare County. It was 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, there were 3,000 people that lived there, next to Sandy Ridge, where the Red Onion was. That was a hotel that was there. There was a hotel, there was a doctor's office, they even had a post office. It was a diverse community. It had African Americans, it had Russians. It had something, it wasn't Bitcoin. I don't know if they called it Buffalo coin, but they had their own currency there. What I'm advocating is to look at that piece of property in y'all's deliberations with the county. As they are searching for sites, I've advocated this sites for years. It's 11 minutes from the entrance of that site to the east entrance of the Virginia Dare Bridge, where the visitor center is. This issue, again, is too important to fail. I heard that a police officer was living with their mother, a candidate. I'm sure that each one of the staff members know people, and you all know people that need a place to live, not a permanent place to live. And what I hope that this plan could be as David Stick did years ago. I was told that Southern Shores is the pearl of Dare County. And I would tend to agree with that. There's a lot of forethought that was put into this community. And I hope as you all move forward in your consideration for housing for people that need that housing, please do not fail. Thank you very much for your time and your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak before we close public comment? There's no old business, so we'll be moving on to new business, which is public hearing TCA 2302, an amendment to the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the town of Southern Shores. At this moment, I'm going to ask our town attorney, Mr. Hornthal, to open the public hearing or
Thank you, Mr. Neal.
proceed with the public hearing.
I now open the public hearing for TCA 2302, an amendment to the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the town of Southern Shores, and call town staff to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Hornthal. Good evening again, council. This next item is a request we've been talking about for some time now. TCA, it's in the form of TCA 2302. And this this ordinance amendment and restatement of a previous ordinance that was adopted will effectively relinquish our extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ, over the Martins Point commercial properties. We were first approached by Mr. John Finelli, who is the Martins Point ETJ representative on the planning board. He brought this up not long after, this is last year, the planning board recommended to you all to put something together, to have town staff put something together to relinquish the ETJ over this area. And then you all, on February of this year, you all directed us to prepare an ordinance to relinquish the ETJ over the Martins Point commercial properties, which we prepared, is included in your packets in the form of TCA 2302. And on August 17th, the town planning board unanimously recommended approval of it to you all. So tonight is a required public hearing. You have in your packets a copy of the ordinance. There's also an exhibit that's included with it that shows the properties that are currently in the Martins Point ETJ that are to be relinquished. So what this ordinance does is it establishes the properties to be relinquished as well as the tracts to remain. We still have the Currituck Sound waters and Atlantic Ocean waters. So instead of having 3 tracts, with Martins Point Commercial being 1, Currituck Sound waters being 2, and Atlantic Ocean being 3, now, if this is approved, we will have number 1, Currituck Sound waters, and 2, Atlantic Ocean waters. Also, there are amendments to the code that refer to, that have references to the Martins Point commercial area. That language is being deleted in the ordinance. And then also I will note that if you all do adopt this tonight, it states this on the last page of the ordinance under effective date, based on general statutes, that if you all do adopt it, it will not be in effect until the county has adopted their development regulations or 60 days has passed, whichever occurs first. I've been talking to the Dare County Planning Director, Noah Gilliam, off and on throughout this process. I confirmed with him today that they are still on schedule to have their regulations in place within 60 days. And he confirmed that the Dare County Board of Commissioners will be holding their public hearing in November. So if you all do approve it tonight and the commissioners move forward with their public hearing in November, then that's when the actual relinquishment would occur. Our zoning development regulations would no longer apply to these properties, and Dare County, they will have adopted new zoning. I don't think it's a new zoning district, but they will fall under their zoning and building development regulations.
Yeah, incorporated area.
Also included in your packet was a certificate of service stating from a certificate from me, certifying that we did send certified mail to all the property owners in the ETJ area. A few of the letters came back, but we used the address as required in the Dare County tax listing. But no one reached out to me to tell me they were in favor or opposed to it. I didn't receive any feedback. Not to say that folks don't have opinions. There might be someone here tonight who wants to speak about it, but I wasn't contacted about it if they do. So I've gone over all of this. If you all have any questions, I'll try to answer it for you now, or I can do it. I can come back later after the public hearing's closed.
If this is adopted, will it need to be followed up with an actual zoning map amendment, or is like the graphic?
So I don't think we would have to do a zoning map amendment. We've already, we've
It's
been,
captured here.
yeah, I think we can include that. We've been working with the consultant to clean up the area near Southern Shores Landing, as well as bring in the dimensional, some of the lot lines that have changed over the years, things like that. And we've already told them that we're not going to include this area. We don't want to include that in the new update. And in the land use plan update, we also have not shown the Martins Point commercial properties on the new maps in the current form of the land use plan update.
Okay.
But no, I don't believe a zoning map amendment is required.
Okay, so just so this came at the request of Martins Point.
The ETJ representative, Mr. Finelli,
Mr.
who
Finelli.
resides in Martins Point, yes, he's the one who first brought it up.
And this tract of land is not part of Southern Shores.
The what? I'm sorry?
This tract of land is not part of.
It is not within the municipal boundaries, no ma'am. It's in unincorporated Dare County, but it's under our development regulations. It follows our development regulations currently.
And you've contacted all of the property owners and have heard no objection.
We sent certified mail to all the property owners, and I have not received any feedback whether they were in favor or opposed. And I will note, there were, I think, 2 or 3 letters that did bounce back saying return to sender. So I don't know where they stand either.
Okay, thanks.
So if nothing happens, 60 days, it passes, right? If the county doesn't get their act together, it passes in 60 days. If we say yes here,
If you all adopt this tonight,
yeah,
then it will pass in 60 days
60 days.
if the county does not have their requirements in place.
got it.
But like I said, the Dare County Planning Director confirmed today that they're on schedule to have their public hearing in November, which would be about, 30 days.
Okay.
So they would have another 30 days if something were to come up.
Just out of curiosity, their public hearing, they deny accepting it, or what happens?
We would ever, that I think, and I would have to look into this more, I think that they would just not be subject to any zoning or development regulations because this relinquishes it in 60 days if they don't adopt it.
Would there be, I'm assuming everything's going to proceed as planned.
We are,
Would
yeah.
there
this-
be any way to, should we wait for the county to accept, or does this have to happen first sequentially?
I believe this has to happen first.
Should we just strike the 60 days and just leave it as one?
That's straight from the statute.
Okay.
But
I'll
like I
stop
said,
being prickly.
we've moved on. Mr. Finelli, and he's worked with their planning board, and their planning director, Noah Gilliam. He met with property owners out there. We wouldn't,
Yeah. I know, I believe you, and
Yeah.
I'm certain everything will proceed. I was just the devil's advocate in me.
I understand, yes, sir, but I think in a worst case scenario, again, I'll have to look into this some more, but most likely it would not, those properties wouldn't be under any development regulations.
Anything goes.
Well, isn't that just about built out over there though?
Those properties,
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're talking like uses. and-
Anything goes.
Anyway,
Yeah, I understand.
I don't think that's going to
Yeah,
happen, but
There was,
It's kind of like an FTC merger.
it's just, there's
They
only
don't
one
file in 30
controversial
days
piece
to
of
go
property
through.
over there. That's the only controversial.
Do you need a motion?
we're still in the public comment
Public
period.
comment,
Thank
yep.
you, Wes.
Is there anyone who signed up to speak? Anyone who would like to speak? At this point, I can now close the public hearing.
All right, council, do we want to discuss this or we seek a motion?
I think we've discussed this before. It's come up many times before. I would like to make a motion to approve TCA 23-TCA-23-02 for approval, amending to the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the town of Southern Shores.
All right,
I'll
we have-
second it.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. It was a quick public hearing.
John will like that.
The next agenda item is the annual appointment of the Reconstruction Task Force. It's on page 19 of your books. Wes, can you give a quick briefing on this? This is task force to call into action post-storm, pick up and do an assessment of the town damage, is my understanding.
Yes, sir. This is an annual appointment that you all do. It's tied into community rating system points and hazard mitigation actions. And this group, the Reconstruction Task Force, they are activated upon the declaration of a building moratorium following a major storm event. So they have not gotten together since I've been here, and I hope they don't while I'm here. But yes, that's the idea, is once there's a storm, we've had a major storm event, a moratorium is declared, so you slow down development and try to get a grasp on redevelopment following such an event. And I try to identify priorities, discern areas for post-storm change and innovation. So that's effectively what they would do, yes, sir.
And we would be essentially reappointing the same task force that's in place currently.
That's correct, yes, sir. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Planning Board Chair, Planning Board Vice Chair, Town Manager, Deputy Manager, Planning Director, Police Chief, Fire Chief, SSCA President, CPOA President, and one representative from the construction community, Mr. David Buchanan, and he's agreed to do that as well again this year.
Council, do we want to discuss, or do we have a motion for this?
I move that we approve the annual appointment of the Reconstruction Task Force.
Second.
Second, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No nos. Next one, I think, is going to have a little bit more meat on the bone. Cliff, this is a consideration of our contract task with Kimley Horn.
Thank you. So back when you first considered entering into an agreement with Kimley Horn, it was January of this year. And at that time, they had, I think, 12 tasks all laid out into one contract. But as we considered the fact that we were trying to get exempt from a Coast Guard permit to permit or require a certain height of that bridge, we felt like we didn't want Kimley Horn to get too far down the road on planning and designing and permitting the bridge that right now I think is 14 feet. If we were able to drop it, then all that planning could potentially go out the window. So we split it up into two tasks. Now we've gotten the answer that we're exempt, and really the height of the bridge is dictated, I think it's 4 feet above the 100-year floodplain. So obviously we're not going that low. And designing and permitting is still going on to determine the exact height. But so now we've put together the task 2. It's got the remaining tasks. Currently tasked under contract are environmental, geotechnical engineering services, topographic survey, the sub-underwater investigation, and those costs, and then there was some document review. Those costs totaled $176,780. The remaining tasks total $257,920. And I think it's about less than $4,000 than that January contract was if we'd have just done it all. But the unknown was how much money we would have spent unnecessarily. So that is pretty close to being a wash. So what we're asking for is a motion. We got two motions we would need to approve. One is motion to approve the town manager to enter into contract with Kimley Horn for the remaining tasks. And then we also need a budget amendment to transfer the contract amount from the unassigned fund balance to the general fund. Some of the, I guess, the questions most asked, I would think, was when would we anticipate letting a contract? A little bit of time has pushed this back, so we're looking at August of 2024, so we got a long way to go with this. And this is right now, so I may, when we let the contract, I may or may not remind you all I stood here and said August 30th at one point, because hopefully it'll be close. Start the project in November of 24, road potentially closed for about 6 months. The canal will be closed much less of a period, maybe a week in December and another week and a half in March. Completion date of sometime in the summer of 25. Ideally, I mean, the plan for the road closure would be before June. Get all that work done before June. Unless you don't want us to.
2025.
The residents north of that bridge would like that,
Yeah.
because they'd be going around.
That, you know, as I said,
Cliff, is this gonna have a sidewalk on both sides? I was looking at the hydraulic design. Is there gonna be a 5-foot sidewalk?
Yes, sir.
on both sides of the bridge or just one?
there's both now, right?
No, there's only one sidewalk now.
Yeah, right.
Right,
So
okay.
it wouldn't, it would,
It would, okay.
yeah, as the police chief said, there's only one sidewalk
Right.
on the road, so there'd be one on that side.
There's,
You
okay,
could,
no
you
thought
could,
for a
yeah.
bike lane there either, okay. Yeah. And the other, well, you answered the question earlier on North Carolina standards. If we got a
Right.
grant, we would have to cross that bridge when we got there.
No pun
Poor
intended.
metaphor, I'm sorry.
I know you sent letters out to some of us involved
Right.
along the canal. Have you had any feedback from any of the residents?
There's, Public Works actually went out and looked for boats, and we could find the addresses of people to speak directly with. At that time, there was only 3 in the water, and we've spoken to all 3 of those. You know, we're somewhere between 8.5 to 10 feet clearance right now. Of those 3, a couple of them, we had no issues with 8.5 to 9.5. One of them would prefer us be closer to 10. What I've asked Kimley Horn to do, so we'd be better informed here, is it's difficult for me to visualize the difference when you're on an approach with, you know, a foot. And so they're going to come up with some renderings as well as cost. You know, we're talking potentially a couple $100,000 for as much as even a foot or 2.
Well, what that foot would do to the sight line that we're trying to correct there too.
Correct. Yeah, and we have to think
That safety sight line is really, I think, important too.
the lifespan of this
Balance.
bridge should be,
The canal goes up and down,
right.
especially back there. I mean, it just depends. Wintertime it's low, summer it's
Well, it
average.
depends on the wind,
Yeah, totally, 100%. I mean,
because I live on, have it coming in and out,
yeah,
because on the upper end of
anyway.
it.
So on their project schedule, they have November 24th. Well, I think I'm reading that right. 25% of the plans will be complete. Is that a point at which they share with
Yes.
us, like preliminary sketches of?
By the end of the
I
year,
think-
I hope to have that rendering and, you know, start to get you something you can visualize and, you know, see.
Yeah. And then we still, at what point do we need to lock in our anticipated bridge height?
Probably at that time.
In November?
Yes, sir. By the end, closer to the end of the year.
Because then they can still adjust the roadway. All right. I'm excited to keep this project moving forward.
Yeah.
It's been a kind of a Band-Aided situation, so.
To say the least.
Not to twist your arms, but does, we want to continue to discuss, or any more questions for Cliff?
No,
Okay.
I'm with you. I think we need to.
We need to
We've
move.
started it and we just got, if we're gonna get it done, we gotta get it done for summer. I know that's a ways off, 2025, but
That might be a blessing.
No.
not
Keep the
necessarily.
tours going the other way around.
So we,
They don't go down to
Are
Jupiter
you
that
ready
much.
for a motion?
Yeah, there's a fair stuff. There's a fair number.
excuse me, guys, Mr. Sherlock.
I'm thinking more of the residents
Go
Okay,
ahead, Paul.
on the north
So-
side of that.
Mark.
Go ahead.
So Mark, I move that we authorize the town manager to enter into a contract with Kimberly Horn for the remaining tasks associated with the permitting and design of the cord slab bridge to replace the culvert located at Trinity Juniper Trail.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? We're all in favor, and we have the budget amendment part too
Right.
coming, but all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? No. And
Great.
we do need a second part of that motion to actually appropriate the funds from
Yes, sir.
unassigned fund balance.
Okay, so I further move that we approve a budget amendment to transfer $257,920 from the undesignated fund balance to the general fund to cover the cost of the contract.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that too.
Thank you, Councilman Holland. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you, guys. That was very
you.
efficient.
That
Now,
was,
my amended agenda item.
Just one,
Go ahead.
you might, a lot of people know you're working on there because they've seen them doing the survey work. I mean, we might start notifying folks through the newsletter, the town newsletter, that we're working on it.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, just to keep them in the loop, okay? Because everybody will be curious. I mean,
That's right.
you know.
Would it make
Just a
sense
thought.
to distill this design project schedule into just a
Yeah.
couple milestones and put the,
Yeah, I think that'd be, if you can. you
Yes,
know,
sir.
Just keep them up to
and then when
date.
it changes.
Yeah.
I think these guys have been pretty efficient. I think they'll probably hold close
Yeah.
to that. Now, we haven't slowed them down at all. So to our added agenda item number 7, this is a formality, I think, in many ways, but I'll let Cliff explain. It's consideration of contract award for our path from Triangle Park to East Dogwood on NC 12.
We want to make sure we don't give the auditor any reason to find something. So we're going to make sure we clean this up and make sure that we disclose all this. As you all know, we received the bids for the multi-use path on NC 12 from the Triangle up to East Dogwood. The bids are up here. This is below the formal threshold. So we bid this informally. The formal threshold for bidding is $500,000. But we did this informally, and you'll see the low bid was Hatchell Concrete, $339,384. The budget ordinance allows me to enter into contracts. I think what it says exactly is to expend funds consistent with governmental functions and amounts shown as appropriated and to execute such documents necessary for same. What we put in the line item budget was we estimated at $328,416. So we're $10,968 over budget with this. If we had a 10% contingency, where the project goes from up to $373,323. I'm not asking you for the money because the money's in this line item to pay for this. There's enough money to cover this project, but the line item in the budget showed less than that 339. So I would feel better if you all authorized, if you adopt a motion to authorize me to enter into a contract for $373,323 with Hatchell Concrete, the low bidder.
which we don't know yet, but the tourism board is going to be contributing to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
that will bring it down.
Yeah, of that amount, $150,000 of it is revenue received from a tourism impact grant. The other thing I just wanted to add before that motion, at the last meeting, you directed us to do the surveying work from East Dogwood up to, actually all the way to Hillcrest. But the application for the grant Wes told you about would take it from East Dogwood to Hickory. That surveying work's $22,000. And then there's a small project from the Spindrift cut through on Skyline on the north side down to NC 12. That surveying work is $2,800. But there's money in the budget to cover these, but I just wanted to tell you while I'm at it.
Thanks.
When you did the line item in the budget, I'm trying to remember for the amount, 329, you said for the.
328, yes, sir.
328. Didn't you have 10% in there already? No?
No, sir.
You didn't? Okay. I thought you did. Okay, all right. Sorry. All right.
So having said all that, I probably made it sound more than the far.
We don't need we have it within the department already, so it's not a change to
Right.
our fiscal budget. We just need to really authorize Cliff to move forward since our line item was lower than the actual bid. Do we have a motion?
So I move that we allow Cliff to enter into the contract for the amount,
$373,323.
yes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? This is going to impact that right away
Yes.
quite a
And
bit. Retaining walls and clearing and things like that. I know you and I talked, but
Right now, we've tentatively got a public information meeting set for October 18th at 5:30. We'll be mailing letters to all the abutting property owners to invite them and to get their questions. After that meeting, we'll issue the notice to proceed to Hatchell. We're going to use our contractor to clear the trees so we can do it, what trees and limbs and things that need to be cleared in order to put this past, so we can be very selective and careful versus just letting the contractor go and do that. So the project will, should be completed within 100, the contract says 150 days from the notice to proceed.
Do we have any indication when they'll start, or did you say that?
I think they'll start,
October.
I think it'll probably be sometime in November,
Okay.
but the plan's to be done in advance of the summer.
Any major season, yeah. Once they get rolling, they usually go pretty quick, so. Well, thank you. Any other questions for Cliff?
Just Chickahawk and Route 12, where they're building the new house. And we have our Southern Shores parking lot. And I watched people up there all summer going up and down from the beach. I mean, and I know we're going to wait till that house is done, right? Or somebody moves in and we figure out what they're doing. But somewhere we've got to, I think, provide some more safety. I know that we're going to have that engineered. Let's not forget about it. That's all I'm saying. I mean, kind of people are walking in the street and everything, and folks are coming up Chickahawk to turn to the light, and then the light worked half the time and half the time it didn't. It's I know the police department watches it too. So anyway, just let's not
Yes,
let it go from the radar. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right.
It's funny you say that. I was asked about that sidewalk this morning.
Were you?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, yeah, I walk it every morning and every time I look at it, it's dangerous.
I shake my head and it's just dangerous.
Yeah, well, then the other thing is, if you're meeting people, somebody, and they've got
Somebody's gotta go
some
on
of
the
their
street.
stuff, somebody's on the street,
Yeah.
which I've been there a time or two.
It's gotta have wider elbows.
I'm not gonna-
All right, I'm just teasing.
I'm small,
The,
they might whip me.
This comes up to our second general public comment. Has anybody signed up for that? Oh, it's a quiet meeting. That's good. Thank you all for coming nonetheless. I appreciate it. Council business. I'm gonna go right down the line. Mark, do you have anything to share?
No, nothing right now.
Leo, you got tourism?
I
board
got tourism
update?
board, but I also got another one is next Tuesday and Wednesday, there's a Red Cross blood drive at Holy Redeemer. On Tuesday, it is which is October 10, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Is that, I'm gonna
We gotta
stop?
make a donation. Yeah, you're done. Thanks, Leo.
I have no idea how that happened.
And then Wednesday, October 11th, from 12 noon to 6 p.m. And if you're there, you have to register, so you can do it on redcross.org and put in your zip code, and you can see what appointments or what times would be open for you. On our tourism board stuff this month, we met up in Duck, which was interesting. But our occupancy collections for the month of July were up 5.75%. Current year to date, we're not even up a full 1%, it's 0.84. Meals, July, we were up 2%, and current year to date, we're up 5%, so everybody's eating. And that's all I got at this point.
Thank you, Leo. Paul?
Nope,
anything
I'm
to
good.
share? I don't think I have much to share either, so thank you all for coming.
We got a closed session.
Yes, we're moving into a closed session pursuant, well, I'll seek a motion to move into closed session pursuant to NC General Statute 143-318.11A, parentheses
You
3.
making the emotion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you.